Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Birds on a Blue Note. Joined by my fellow captain here tonight, RJ. Hey buddy, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
I mean, a lot better than I thought I'd be doing after the last week since we did our Padres preview.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, what a stretch. I mean, everybody thought that this was going to be the nail in the coffin on the season, and if there's one thing that this team continues to do, it is play to the level of their opponents. The good teams were either splitting or pretty much taking the series, and the shit teams, we are just underestimating them at like every level. It's like it's like the cliche in the baseball movies where you call everybody in on the scrawny kid and he hits it over your head for in the park home run and
Oh yeah, no,
whatnot.
for sure. That happened to me actually last week in my rec league softball. I was the first base, hey, come in. I was playing right, and he's like, okay, and then he hits it in my head. It's like, what the heck are you doing, bud? But well, he usually just dumps it into right field. So yeah, that's exactly what it's been like. And it's such a weird stretch too, because like you said, a lot of people thought this is gonna be the nail in the coffin, but we've shown signs of life again. It's been such a strange year because you remember we were talking at the beginning of the season, we were talking like it was a lost season already. And then we had that Mother's Day stretch where we were like the best team in the National League for a month and a half. And then we were the worst team in the National League again for the next 3 weeks. Now here we are, we've won 4 of 5 series, split the other one, and it wasn't easy series. We just beat the Brewers in this series. We took the series against the Yankees. We split with the Padres, who have been on fire, by the way. Took the series from the Twins and then took the series previously to the Brewers also. So I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Um, but hey, I mean, 5 games back feels like a lot still, but it doesn't feel impossible. And considering the stretch we just went through, you hope that maybe we're building something here for exciting baseball for the last few weeks of the year.
It's not impossible, but a lot of stuff has to happen. And you just wish, like, you look back at a lot of these series against these shit teams, and it's just like
Reds, the Royals. We dropped a
Marlins,
series to the Rockies, the
Rockies.
Marlins. We dropped a series to the White Sox early in the year, who are like 5-25 in their last 30.
Yeah.
Crazy
So,
stuff.
I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, they came out of the All-Star break real slow. You thought that,
Mhm.
especially with us not having really anybody playing in the game, that week off would have been a good time for them all rested, but I mean, they maybe slept in a little too much or something because it took a little while to get back going and everything. But I mean, I just feel with the teams ahead of us and how they've all been playing, it's too little, too late. I'd love to be proven wrong on that, like I was before when we've won championships. I'm not saying that this is a championship team by any means, but they have clearly shown that when they are hot, they can beat anybody in the AL or the NL so far. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
we dropped that Dodgers series too, which is as you said, like we lost 2 of 3, but all 3 games were competitive. We were right there in it. The other two we
close.
lost. It's it's a strange team, for sure. It's been a weird year.
It absolutely has. And I mean, um, one of the biggest like disappointments this year, and by far am I not at all disappointed with the contract overall, has been Goldy. He was worth every penny we signed him for. We knew. I honestly thought we were gonna have a few worse years than we did with him with that contract. And I mean, like he's been worth every penny that we've spent on him. So I mean, it just sucks that this is the season where we had the youth coming on and we just needed some more vet presence. Thankfully, he's been real hot these last few games and whatnot, and that's really helped drive this team. So leads us into one of the big questions is, does this team end up extending Goldie? If so, what does that look like? I mean, I'll let you field question one first. Do you think they extend him? Or do they let him hit free agency and try to offer in that?
Knowing, and I think we've had this conversation before off the pod, knowing the way the DeWitts operate, and how they like to retire their numbers and give out the red jackets and then parade them around during opening day, I think they're going to try really hard to extend Paul Goldschmidt. Do I think they should? Yes and no. He like you mentioned, he's been really hot, especially like the last 30 games. He's OPS and around 900 for around the last 30 games, which if you look at the numbers overall in the season, you're like, holy smokes, like to have a stretch like that after being as bad as you've been for most of the years, pretty amazing. Um, here's my issue. I think they're going to try to offer him 2 to 3 years. I think we should only sign him for one. And I think that should be an incentive laden contract for 1 year. But I just don't, we don't operate like that. It rarely happens. Like maybe if someone's about to retire, like a Matt Carpenter will give that kind of deal. But Paul Goldschmidt still has a few years of baseball left in him. And I think they're going to try to get all of those from him. In a perfect world, though, we sign him 1 year and then we take our big swing at Murakami the next year as our like first baseman of the future. But I guess we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't be mad with Paul Goldschmidt being on this team because he brings a lot of veteran leadership and he brings a good presence to the locker room, and he shoulders a lot of responsibility from the younger guys too as they're going to be growing and taking over like the core nucleus of this team moving forward. Um, but is he worth it? Is the problem? Is he going to block someone? Is like, and aside from Burleson, who could, I guess, maybe play first base, we don't really have a top flair first base prospect anyway. So unless we were going to sign Pete Alonso this offseason, which we're not going to do, then Paul Goldschmidt is still probably our best option at first base for next year. It's the years beyond that where I'm like, probably shouldn't be going into that territory with him. But yeah, I rambled long enough. I'll let you field that question as well.
I mean, preferably in an ideal world, I'd like to not re-sign him, but like you said, there aren't too many options available on the market for first baseman, and it isn't like we have a, super ready person. I mean, you could maybe argue that, Baker might be able to play first, but he's not going to replace all that, power average that you got from Goldie and whatnot. Ideally, again, in a perfect world, I would have liked to let Goldie go this season and find somebody like an Alonso for first base, somebody to cover the next few years like that, while we can, get some guys coming up that are able to play first base or at least shift over. But um I do I think they'll end up signing him to something or other.
Yeah, definitely.
My only hope is that with his years that he's been in the league, all the money he's made, they are smart enough to talk him into a deferment contract like what Otani did.
Or like Wayno is doing right now. Wayno's got
Mm.
deferred money, he's still getting paid too.
But not to the same level
Yeah.
as, because here's the thing, I would be totally fine with providing Goldie quite a bit of money if it's all deferred. And if he's making 3, 4 million a year on the payroll, like Otani is, but he's making like 14, an extra 10 million a year in like 10 years from now. Make sense?
No, I get it for sure. I wouldn't like to do that. I still wouldn't like that because that's extra payroll that we don't really need, right? It's
But that's payroll when the cap is a lot higher. So the percentage that hit's gonna be is minuscule compared to what it is now. And again, if you can have him on your payroll for only 4 million, wouldn't you rather have that than
I mean,
somebody else? I
I
mean,
would rather have that than like say perhaps the 2 year $40 million deal he'll probably end up getting, which is my prediction. I don't know what you think he'll actually get. Um, well, yeah, in a perfect world, like I mentioned, he'd get a 1 year incentive laden deal, maybe make 15 to 20 mil if he hits some base numbers that they're looking for, and then figure out 2026 and beyond, right? Because this is a conversation we've had before is long term, like as much as I love our young nucleus group of prospects that we have, like we have Walker, we have Burleson coming his own, we got Weatherholt on the way, it's the JC's on the way. we don't have beyond Goldschmidt and Arenado, who's on the top on a little bit of the downturn. He could bounce back next year, but he's still in his mid 30s. We don't have that guy that we know is going to put up the numbers year in and year out, right? You're relying a lot on the prospects, which, like I said, as much as I love them, I think a few of them are going to be really good still. You can't operate that way, just kind of hoping and crossing your fingers these guys work out, because then you end up in a position like you are now, where if the superstar ages and you're relying on only young guys, it's tough because they might not be all you hoped they would be, at least not right away. I mean, look at Walker's season. It's been a roller coaster for him. And I still think he'll be good. It's just we need that guy. And if it's not going to be Goldie, we're going to have to find someone in the near future. Um, and that's
I'm
why I
not.
said like Alonso would be great because you can pencil him in for 40 home runs, 100 RBIs every year. But aside from him, we're not going to spend the money on him. There isn't really anyone out there.
Well, not this off season, but in the next few years, there definitely are. I mean, power hitting first baseman is literally like the name of the game if you want to
Oh yeah,
make
for
it to the
sure. And
pros.
that's why I said I want Murakami. I think the Cardinals should do everything in their power to try to sign him in 2 years when he's probably posted, not this next off season, but the one after.
I mean, we'll see. Ultimately, it's all about what.
And it would fit the timeline I like too. But here's the thing: I think they're going to sign him for 2 years, which kind of, if Goldie is still signed, you're not going to go after Murakami because we already have a first baseman we're paying 20 mil a year. That's the thing is we kind of overextend on guys sometimes. We shouldn't because we're very loyal to our veterans and the guys that are good in the clubhouse to a fault sometimes. I mean, you look at like what happened with Carpenter's the last couple years here before he went to the Yankees and the Padres and kind of flipped around a little bit. Is we play these guys on the contracts almost no matter what, regardless of performance, and that just kind of puts us in a position where it's harder to pull these other guys because we got the money committed and then we got the playing time thing. So
I mean, we didn't re-sign Pujols when he was asking for too much.
that's true,
Ultimately,
but Pujols is a whole different monster. We tried. I think we offered him close to 300 mil still. It just didn't work out.
we tried, but again, he was asking for too much, and it's one of those things where they stood firm. Whereas you know Moreno
Yeah, but the
kept
2 year
showing
40
up.
million is a wide gap from 10 year 300 million. It's a
True,
big
but money's
difference.
money right now, and money's tight for DeWitt.
Allegedly.
So spending an extra 20 million a year on Goldie, if he's not going to get that return, if it's not going to bring people into the seats, is he going to do it? It's a business for him ultimately. And yeah, like you said, if Goldie's going to last a few more years, you can always offer him a contract in a couple years from now. Let somebody else take him on a burden and bring him back like you did a la Carpenter, a la Pujols, a la Pham for, reunion tours as we love to do and whatnot.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I just think DeWitt wants to keep him here until he retires. That way, if
Mhm.
he does go in the Hall of Fame, there's a chance he goes in as a Cardinal, or he can, like I said, parade him around Busch Stadium on opening day with the red jacket. And you know
I
how much
mean,
they love that stuff.
yeah,
They love it. And it's fine. I
they,
like it.
they have enough people for that though. They don't need to worry about that.
I mean, some of them are getting older and some of them are passing away, sadly. So, not as
Well,
many as
you
it was.
got you got Yachty and Pujols coming up soon, so they're not worried about
Yeah,
others.
that's true. That's true also. What's your prediction for his contract though, since I put mine out?
I really don't know. I think some team will be able to talk him into deferring money and give him more.
You don't think it'll be us then? You think he'll be gone after this year?
I don't think anybody's gonna see him as worth 20 million a year for the next few years
I
unless
I
he's deferring that money
I
because
have a
then the payroll hit isn't there. So again, they don't mind doing it. I could see the Dodgers trying to talk him into that and being like, "Hey, we'll give you 30 million if you defer 25 of it."
they already have Freeman though. Do they really need Goldie too? Otani's
They,
their
do,
DH.
do they really need the entire super team that they have? No. But do they
No,
have it? Yes. Are
but
they going
where
to
would he
keep adding
play?
to it? Yes.
Where would Goldie even play though if he's not playing first
I'm
or
just
DH?
kidding. They're not going to sign him. I'm just saying. Like,
Maybe I could see the Mets being in there if Alonso walks. That would make sense.
I mean, I see him getting maybe 15, 17 a year. but I
That's a
see
fair
somebody
number.
offering him 3 years at that level.
That's a lot of years for someone who had the year he just or the season he's having currently. Um,
Yeah. But the problem is people have a short-term memory in this business, and they're going to remember this last month of his, and his agents are going to use that to prove, hey, he still got it
yeah, the
and
Cardinals are
whatnot.
just really bad and weird team in 2024. That was an outlier. He's still really good.
He's still great. Goldie at his worst is better than like half the league. I will take him any day. The problem is that his contract level is not at that now, and it can't remain at that, and nobody's going to continue to pay him at that exorbitant rate for these, you know, twilight years, so to speak. Even though he is still good, he's no longer great overall for like a whole season, whereas he could be before,
Yeah,
and
he's not a 20 million a year player anymore, which
no, his averages dropped significantly. The strikeouts are still there. He's not walking as much.
not slugging
Um,
as much, except for
slugging
the last 30 days.
slugging overall is down. RBIs aren't there. The home runs are, even though they're coming back right now, like they hadn't been there all season, aka, the slugging.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll
So
see. I have him penciled in for 2 years, 40 million to the Cardinals, just knowing the way the DeWitts operate. But I would love to be wrong. I would, like I said, I don't dislike Goldie at all. I just don't want him preventing us from doing something that the team actually really needs, especially considering the current production. A 1 year deal would be ideal here, but we'll see, I guess. Um,
he's not gonna sign a 1 year deal. It's his career, and his agent's gonna be like, hey man, like if you do this and you have another bad season, you're not getting anything. He's gonna
sure,
sign a
but if no one
multi-year
offers him
deal.
2 years, but someone probably
Some
will, but
some
we'll see.
team will offer him multiple years to have him on the roster. Some team will.
And it's going to be us.
I don't know, man. I really don't know. I don't think DeWitt wants to spend that money like that right now, especially with how he's been very vocal about it this year,
Yeah.
with about it this year. And yeah,
So
um,
I guess moving on from
yeah.
Goldie, what do you think the rotation should look like next year as opposed to what it will look like next season?
Well, let's see. So we already have our money tied into Miles, Fede,
Miles Fetty are both on contract.
Nats,
Gibson has an option. Lynn, I believe, has an option as
and
well.
Sunny. Yes,
Yeah.
correct. We're already guaranteed in on 4 people for next year, plus 2 options. And that doesn't even count Palente being already on the roster and being under team control. You got McGreevy, who came up and actually shoved pretty good his
And he's been
outing.
shoving in the minors since too. He kind of turned his whole year around in that one start in the majors. It's crazy.
Dude, I'm sorry, but if you have a great game like that in the majors, nobody's gonna scare you in AAA anymore when you go back down
Yeah,
there.
but he was struggling so much before then. It's weird how that worked out for him.
Confidence. Pitching is confidence, man. If you feel it, man, oh. But and then you got Tank and you got Matthews and
Matthews,
whatnot.
who's flying up. This
So
is his fourth level in one season. He's pitching and currently in Triple H. It's
I
absurd.
I think it's all gonna depend on how those youngsters finish off the season. If they continue to do like they're doing and they show up, um, I think that Matthews is probably going to be one of our guys that we are sending to the Arizona Fall League along with JJ. That's my guess. We're probably going to send a few others as well, but those are the two, glaring ones that I think they're going to want to see get extra looks against tougher competition. And I mean, if he does well, like that makes other people expendable. And that's where things get a little tricky, where you might have to pair prospects with Matt's or Miles' contract if you want to ditch them and whatnot. Fede's going to be on there for sure. I don't think you re-sign both of Lynn and Gibson. Um, you might not even re-sign both if the guys continue to show out because again, you already got Palente. So he's going to get a roster spot next season, I imagine, with how
He
he's been
should.
pitching.
He should.
Like he's earned it. I don't see why they would drop him back down at
He's
all.
been arguably our best starter since he's been starting, like even better than Gray, as much as I hate to admit it. Gray's had a couple really good, like vintage Gray starts, but he's also had some flops in between. Palante's been
Well,
mostly very consistent.
he's only been inconsistent when he's thrown to Pajas. Let's be very clear about that.
It's yeah, that's a weird thing, isn't it? I was looking at that too. His ERA is somewhere around 5, throwing to
It's
Pajes for
over
some reason.
5 with Pajas, and it's like I think right around 3 or under 3 with the other two catchers, and like it's a clear distinction. Like,
Yeah,
but
they're just not on the same page.
I mean, it's just really interesting situation that we have because unless Mats is willing to move to the pen, which I actually like him out of the pen, similar to how we like Libby out of the pen. I think he's more effective. It's less stress on his arm overall on the season. And he actually has a good arsenal for coming out of the pen, and he can give you multiple innings. And we need more long relievers. If there's one thing this year has shown us, is we need more long relievers and whatnot. We need guys who can kill 2, 3 innings. We got Fernandez, but having that lefty option along with Libby out of the pen would be really nice and whatnot. I
Especially
mean,
with JoJo kind of being inconsistent since the second I've started too. It'd be nice to have that extra arm.
I'm not worried about JoJo. He's 20 innings more pitched than his previous career high. He had never pitched more than 20 innings before coming to St. Louis and whatnot. So, like, this is just arm fatigue. Like, this is plain as day arm fatigue. It happened towards the tail end of August or mid-August and now carrying into September. This is exactly when guys that are being overworked start to show it and whatnot. And guys are just getting better reads on him. He's probably like, you know, giving in a bit more, showing where his release points are. But yeah, I mean, we can do a deep dive into that another time. But I mean, what are your thoughts on rotation for next year?
I mean, I think you mostly hit the nail on the head here. That's kind of what I was hope. I think the Cardinals, and this is a mistake I think they're making right now, also in different spots. I think the Cardinals should continue to play for the future, the rest of this year and early next season, right? Because ultimately, if we're never going to be a big spender, which I don't think we will be, we are going to have to see what we have in these younger guys, right? So, like, that means that you cannot pick up the Gibson option. That means you cannot pick up the Lynn option. I think we should have put Miles on waivers just to see if someone would take him, considering he's had his stretches where he's been good this year. Because if someone would have done that, that would have done us a huge favor. But alas, here we are. And like you said, unless we can throw in some money or like a decent enough prospect, he'll be a part of the rotation next year. But yeah, as you mentioned, McGreevy is someone that I think deserves another look, considering and his one start he came up and he looked really good. And this is a former first round pick too, so this isn't like some, as much as he's underperformed as a minor leaguer, this isn't someone who did not have the potential in the past. It's still there. It's just, can we unlock it, right? So he deserves another look. I think absolutely Palante has earned a spot at least to start next year in the rotation, considering how good and consistent he's been for us since he's been starting. We're on the hook for Fetty for another year, so he'll be here. That's what, 3, and then Gray is 4. So it comes down to, like, is Quinn Matthews going to be ready? I like your idea of putting him in the fall league because this is a guy that we know can throw a lot. He's famous for throwing like 150 pitches in a game for Stanford. He'll throw until his arm falls off, but then it doesn't fall off because he's just a freak, right? So um Tink is a guy that's obviously really close too, but I know they've monitored his pitch count and his innings a little bit more, so I don't think he's quite there yet. I would expect him to probably be a mid 2025, maybe September call up type next season. But ideally, yeah, you would look at somehow, some way we get rid of Miles, free up that spot. And like you said, Matt's out of the pen is not a bad idea either because he's got the stuff. With him, it's just always, is he healthy, right? Like,
Well,
and he never is.
and especially at his contract. His contract really isn't a red herring at all if he's coming out of the pen and whatnot.
No, I mean, like at the time we signed him, it wasn't a bad deal. And this was a guy that had a really good year with the Mets previously. So he's got the stuff. It's just a matter of health with him too, right? And having that another lefty arm with Libertor, who's excelled out of the pen lately, would be a really good combo out of the late inning bullpen, which would need to be figured out too anyway, right? Because Kittredge is a bit of an older guy. I don't remember if we have him signed for another year. Um, but yeah, then we have guys like Fernandez, and we have like Riley O'Brien, who we're not sure about right now. So it's a lot of question marks back in bullpen aside from like Helsley and JoJo.
Mhm.
So that would be good, to throw him back there and stabilize the pen a little bit. But like I said, ideally you'd pair Gray with Fetty at the top two, and then you would give the other three rotation spots to Palante, I think, who's earned one, and then you're looking at like maybe a McGreevy or maybe Quinn Matthews if he looks ready to give it a shot. Or you have Graceffo still, who's what, 26, 27, 27. You're eventually going to have to see what you have in him. And that's not even talking about Robersa, who had a nice year before getting hurt, or like there's a lot of options. And that's why I think we really should be playing for 2025 and beyond right now, but we're just not doing it. Um, so
Well,
it's
that's
interesting.
partially, I think that's because Ollie, I think, knows that he's fighting for his job right now. I think he knows that he needs this team to continue on a hot streak if he even wants any chance to salvage his job. I don't know if he needs to make the playoffs to do so because of how hot every team is ahead of him. Statistically, right now, we could end up winning, 85 games and miss
Yeah, because the
because
Mets
of,
and the Padres and the Braves have been on fire and no one wants to beat them.
yeah, and the teams ahead of them have been on fire. It seems like nobody at the top in the NL is losing, so I don't know where these losses are coming from the teams they're beating. I looked at I looked at the NL win-loss the other day, and then I looked at the AL, and like it was all win streaks. It was like all win one, win three, win five, win seven on the NL side. And then on the AL side, it was all lose three, lose five, lose two, lose
A
three.
lot of disparity,
I'm
yeah.
like, fuck, that's where all these losses are coming from. We're just beating up on AL teams right
Even scheduling, there you go. That's the
now.
thing now. So
Yeah. But I think the spring brings a lot of competition. There are going to be a lot of battles, but I could easily see the front office trying to, you know, bait some teams in the offseason, see if they can move one of these other contracts or that. Even maybe trying to move the rights to Gibson or Lynn, because technically those guys are under contract up until free agency. So you could negotiate and stuff like that. But
yeah, that'd be smart too. Maybe like re-up on the extra year at a cheap deal, and then that has some value for someone who's looking for a back end, like
I
someone
mean,
like Gibson who's going to get the innings no matter what.
you don't have to have everything set until the year starts. So you can absolutely be talking with the team once, you are eliminated and be like, hey, are you guys possibly interested in taking on somebody like Gibson or Lynn? We can make sure you get him at a cheap rate and whatnot. Because especially with how contracts rose after those two signed, they wouldn't command that rate right now with their numbers. I mean, they had pretty decent seasons despite the ERA numbers. The quality starts, the innings are there. They both show that they can be valuable options to a team on the back end of their rotation. Right
Yeah,
now, it's
and there were
reliable
stretches
guys.
during this year where they were legitimately good pitchers too. It's just the blow up starts in between that inflates everything. So it's
Again, they're
interesting.
great fives. They're great fives.
The problem is we signed them as twos and
We
threes.
signed both of them.
Yeah, that was my initial complaint, and then I looked stupid for a little bit, and then now it's kind of evening back out. I was like, I was right the whole time. I knew it. It's like,
Dude, nobody thought they were going to be aces, but but they did what they were signed for, and honestly, at 10 and 12 million dollars, I'd pay that again for this.
yeah, I
I just
mean,
we could have gotten some more power at the right time and had better hitting with runners in scoring position and
right?
whatnot.
I mean, both superstars severely underperformed this year. I mean, look at Goldie right now, and we were just talking about how hot he's been. Is it a coincidence that we're now winning too? It's like if they perform to what they're supposed to, we're looking at a completely different season.
Well, especially because earlier on in the year, the youth was really carrying it. Burley, Donnie, Wynn, Herrera.
Gorman had stretches. Like he led the team in home runs for a long time before getting sent
Even
down.
Gorman was chipping in. Had we had some more support, that takes pressure off of Gorman. Gorman's not seeing as, terrible of pitches. He's seeing some more juicy stuff because guys are, exhausting themselves trying to get Goldie out and then not worrying as much about the guys in front of him and whatnot. But yeah, when you don't need to worry about him, you can focus your energy on the guy that's hitting like Burley and that. And yeah, I was talking with somebody in the community the other day, and it's like we could have handled one or the other not having a career average year, but them both having not career average years, like that's like back in the day not having Roland and Pujols having a solid year at the same time, man. That would have wrecked us back
Oh, it
in the
absolutely
day.
killed us for sure. And it
And
did. I mean, we've seen the results firsthand. It killed us, right?
yeah, and like I mean, you're looking at like I think between the two of them combined, it's like 40 to 60 less RBIs on the season is what they're pacing for. And like look at how many games we just lost by one run where they left men on base multiple times. And it's just like even one of those hit it goes to extra, you never know what happens, man. And we're so close behind that even a handful of those games we win, boom, we're right in that wild card spot right now.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. And
it's
like if you want to talk
just
recently,
unfortunate.
getting swept by the Reds, that 3 game series, if we win two of those, we're only 3 games back of the wild card right now. It's
But it is what it
strange
is.
year.
This is where
Yeah.
we're ourselves. And I mean, there is stuff to be looking forward to in the future. We've seen a lot of contributions from the youth, not just at the major league levels, but at the minor league levels. Like you said, Matthews jumping through 4 levels in a year. JJ's already getting off to a pretty hard start, and he's expected to be up in 2 years. So even if we miss the playoffs, we're looking at maybe a good pick again. And yeah, but I mean, any
Lottery, you
final
never know,
thoughts?
right? The Reds were almost a playoff team last season. They ended up with the number 3 pick somehow, some way. It drives me nuts, but it can happen. So it's
Um,
crazy.
any final thoughts in the last minute?
Um, Not particularly. I just hope moving forward we handle Walker better. I want to see him play every day, and that's it. No more of the back and forth and sitting in AAA and the majors. That's my last thought.
Well,
Do your job, Ollie. Play him every day.
he's got to work on stuff in the off season. It's up to him to take care of his off season development and
For
whatnot.
sure.
But
But he needs the experience also.
yeah. No, that's all I got. But anyways, thank you everybody for joining us for another episode. Uh, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you all next time. Have a great night. Take care.